Is about to begin on the murder Monday night of a teenager. His two sisters have been charged with the crime. Let's listen in.
You guys will hopefully know what you need to know for your stories. Thank you.
You're looking live. We're waiting for the sheriff to step up to the microphone in Columbia County. This murder was Monday night. A teenage boy, 16-year-old boy, was found shot to death in his home in White Springs. His two younger sisters, ages 15 and 11, are both charged with his murder. They were held without bond. This is a picture of the 15-year-old. They are being held in juvenile custody. Their parents were arrested and were charged with child neglect. Their parents have had bonds set at $20,000 each. This is a picture of the younger sister, and this is a picture of the parents. Police have revealed, let's listen in now, this is the sheriff.
Good afternoon. My name is Mark Hunter, Sheriff of Columbia County. We have with us also Jeff Sigmeister, who is the State Attorney for the Third Judicial Circuit. What we're going to do today is I'm going to read a prepared statement. Mr. Sigmeister will give you all a statement, and then I'm going to go through a timeline. I'll read my statement, go through a timeline, and then Mr. Sigmeister will give his statement, and then we'll do some question and answer. In order to catch everybody up, and for some of those that may not have all of the information or the beginning, on Monday, January the 5th at approximately 10 p.m., Columbia County deputies were dispatched to 1203 Sophie Drive near White Springs to investigate a possible shooting. The Sheriff's Office had been alerted to the shooting by White Springs Police Department, who had received information from two juveniles that they contacted in their city that there was a possible shooting. When deputies arrived at the home on Sophie Drive, a deceased male was found in the living room floor with a suspected gunshot wound. Also inside the home was a 3-year-old child who was immediately taken out of the home and cared for by a Columbia County Sheriff's Office supervisor until DCF took custody of the child. Our detectives were called and began their investigation after the residence was secured. The preliminary investigation revealed that Ariel Cornegie admitted to White Springs Police she had shot her brother earlier in the evening. During the course of the investigation, it was revealed that Nicole, the 11-year-old sister, had also assisted in the attack by helping plan and conduct the act. At the time of the homicide, the parents of the children were out of town. They were reported as leaving around 11 a.m. earlier that morning of the 5th. The actions leading to the homicide are still being investigated, and the motive has yet to be determined. This is a heart-wrenching tragedy for our community, and it's severely affected our community. The first responders as well, and our entire community is grieving along with the family. I do want to say that I'm extremely proud of the men and women of the Columbia County Sheriff's Office and the way that they've handled this event so far. Also, the people that have assisted us with the investigation, State Attorney's Office. We did have FDLE crime scene come over, as they have some advanced technology that we don't have currently here with the Sheriff's Office. I'm going to go through the timeline, and then at that time I'll turn it over to Mr. Sigmeister, and then he can give you his statement. At 10:10 p.m. we received the call of the possible shooting. At 10:22 the deputies arrived. At 10:33 our detectives, our command staff, and our victim advocate arrived at the residence. At 11:36 p.m. Ariel and Nicole were transported from White Springs to our building here that we call the Ops Center. At 1 a.m. DCF took charge of the 3-year-old. At 3:29, part of our process is that we have to, once we secured the residence, after we determined that there was a deceased individual in there, by law, we have to get a search warrant, which we did, and it takes a little bit of time to do that. We secured the scene, had a perimeter. Once getting the search warrant, we executed the search warrant to retrieve any evidentiary things for prosecution. At this time, I'll turn it over to Mr. Sigmeister.
Thank you. There's very little I can say factually about this case. We don't try the cases in the press. What I will tell you is today, both children were presented in front of the judge, both appointed counsel. One is represented by the Office of the Public Defender, the other by the Office of Regional Counsel. They both have attorneys, and we had a detention hearing today, which is essentially a first appearance for juveniles. The judge has ordered them to be detained for the 21 days allowed by statute with an additional 9 days. So they are currently in juvenile detention for 30 days. One is in one facility, I believe in Ocala. The other is in the Gainesville detention facility. My office, the most common question I've received is whether I will file on them as adults. That is not something that I or my staff have made a decision on. There are limits the law allows me. Whether I seek an indictment, they have to be treated as adults. And if I direct file, which is an information by my office, I have discretion as to the older child. As to the younger child, it's either juvenile or an indictment. And at this time, I haven't made a decision yet. As to the parents' charges, they are currently facing neglect charges, and we will review other potential charges that they will face. That is all I have for this time.
Went ahead and we'd received several questions. I want to try to answer a couple of those. Was the gun secured in the home? Yes, it was. It was in a locked bedroom. The two individuals actually, while the victim was asleep, went out of the residence and broke in through an exterior window, retrieved the weapon, actually loaded the weapon. It was unloaded, and went back in, and then the oldest child shot her brother. I know that there's been several questions about, had we been out to the residence before? Yes, we had been out on 3 occasions. On 3/25 of 13, we went out for a property damage complaint. On 9/16 of 13, we went out for a civil matter. And then on 7/20 of the 11, we went out for a juvenile issue that was turned over to DCF and was unfounded. And the other question that we had that's been asked is, why were the parents being charged with neglect? The neglect charge has nothing to do with the immediate incident. It is for some other things, relating to the children or to the child. They had locked doors in there. The oldest daughter, the defendant, oldest defendant, had been locked in her room on different occasions, and basically in the room all there was a blanket and a bucket to urinate in. And the other question was, did the girls admit to the crime? Yes, during the process they did admit that they had, or the oldest did admit to it. At this time, I'll try to take a few questions. Yes, sir.
Patrick Fleming, GTA News out of Gainesville. Were you investigating these child neglect charges before this week's shooting?
The incident that went on the last incident that we went out on, yes, we went out, took a report, and then we turned it over to DCF, and which is protocol for us. We go out, we take the initial report, and then they handle the investigation as far as any charges or following up on.
And that was the 15-year-old's allegations of neglect. That was the report.
Well, there was an issue between her and the brother, and we've got packets that we'll provide to you guys, which is all the cases and that are closed cases that y'all will have, that y'all can go through to get.
When did the neglect charge come up?
Do what?
When did the allegation of those?
During the course of the investigation, when we were interviewing the children, and plus the house itself, you know, the environment, the living environment. There was several factors that led us to do this.
So your detectives saw that, and then they.
Well, during the course of the interviews with the children, there was things that that were brought out that we felt were appropriate, and working with the state's attorney, that was part of why we charged those. Yes, ma'am?
Can you elaborate on a possible motive? We have learned from White Springs Police Department that Ariel may have been beaten prior to this. Can you?
Well, no. This is really a sad case, and you know, this is for our community to have this, and then there's going to be 100,000 whys, and we may not ever know exactly why that this child acted out like this. Environmental factors, you know, life's very tough, and we get dealt a lot of cards that are unfortunate sometimes, and this is just a really sad case. And like I say, our hearts go out to, you know, to the other family members that are out there, and to our community, because we don't have this in our community. We didn't have any homicides last year in the unincorporated areas of Columbia County, and so we're not really accustomed to this. Why the child acted out, you know, I can't say. I can't say. There are some factors there that probably could have led up to that, but you know, I'm no doctor or psychologist or anything like that. We just try to put it back together as best we can, and hope that the community can heal from it and move forward.
What has been her emotional state?
Yes, sir.
So just wanted you to elaborate a little bit more on what the, which daughter told you about the bucket and the blanket situation. Was that something that was a reoccurring allegation that she's made, or was there evidence of that in the house?
Well, during the course of the interview with the girls, and I can't be, you know, real specific as to which time it was. I don't have that in front of me, but it came out about the living conditions there. So, and I think this was a way, you know, the child had some issues prior to this. You know, the parents had removed her from school. They were having issues with the daughter acting out at the house. This was kind of their way of dealing with the child. You know, everybody has different ways of dealing with their children and their way they bring them up, and some don't set real well with us. You know, we wouldn't do our children that way, but there again, it's part of society, and we can't run from it. It's just what we deal with. We just hope that we can make it better in the future. So, anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Sheriff, did the parents elaborate on the issues they were having with their daughter? Were they specifically with her brother? And can you talk a little bit about the past incident between the two that you investigated?
It's in the report what we did, and you can get with DCF on the incident. You know, they can release that information, and you know, without having everything right here in front of me, this has been. I'm going to tell you, this has been a extremely long day yesterday, a long night yesterday, and you know, it's really hard for us to get our arms around this kind of activity. You know, this is stuff that nightmares are made of, and you know, we hope that the children going through this process will be able to be helped. I mean, but it's just a tough one, you know. And anyone else?
In regards to the parents, can you tell us where they were and when they returned?
My understanding that he is an over-road truck driver, and this was common practice. The mother had lost her job, and she would actually go with him on some of the trips. This is how they made their living. So that was just part of the way that they did, and left them with a 16-year-old, which is an accepted practice. You know, we all you know what the child care costs are and things like that. And if you have an older sibling, you know, they will leave them with them sometimes, which is appropriate. So, yes, ma'am.
You said the child was taken out of school. When was that? The daughter was taken out of school?
Yes. I don't have the specific date, but this has been over the last couple of years. So, like I say, there's been a lot of issues with the child. There was an incident back, and you guys will have all that information in the reports, and y'all can look through that. But it's just it's really tough to see this, and you know, we can't control everything. We hope that people will live by good morals and be productive in society. But when these things happen, that's what we're here for. And again, I just want to, you know, I want to say thanks to the employees of the Sheriff's Office. They handled this thing extremely professional. The assistance that we got from other agencies, you know, and it's concerning to me, you know, with what all's going on in the media about law enforcement. I can tell you right now, this this case here, I've been doing this for a pretty good long time, and I've never seen anything like this. And so I'm just hoping that we can get this and move forward and get some healing to go on and get this behind us.
What time do you think that shooting took place, sir?
Would the child abuse allegations, could that change premeditation? Could that change
I could defer that to the state attorney, but I'm sure he's not going to be able to answer that now. All that's going to be looked at. The whole circumstances around this event are going to be looked at. I can tell you this: this is a tough one, and when we're dealing with children and them acting out in such a violent way, it leaves a lot of question. And hopefully we can learn from this and glean some information that will help us better ourselves in the future. You asked about what time was the shooting?
What time was the shooting?
We're thinking, we don't have the autopsy back yet, but we're thinking probably within 3 hours prior to them making contact at the 3 to 4 hours prior to them making contact in White Springs. Yes, ma'am.
Action News. Can you tell us more about the 3-year-old, where that child was exactly in the house during all of this?
I can tell you the 3-year-old, she was present when all of this took place. There's some other things that after this case is closed out, I'm sure that they will use this as a study case for dealing with juveniles and stuff. But she was present in the home the entire time. Where exactly, she was all in different locations at different times in the home.
How many times was she shot?
I don't have the autopsy back, but at this time we suspect 1 shot. Okay, yes, sir.
About the weapon used, do you know the caliber or type of gun it was?
Yes, sir. It was a 9mm.
And,
I don't know the brand.
Yeah.
Was
it in a locked cabinet or anything like that?
It was in a locked bedroom. They actually came out of the house while the victim was asleep and broke in through a window, out an exterior window, got the weapon, loaded it, and went back around there, and she shot him.
And just to clarify, that 11-year-old would have been with her here at the time?
She was in the residence at the time, okay? And I'm not going to get specific on exactly where everybody was at and all that. I mean, but they were all at the house whenever the shooting took place, okay?
State Attorney, this 11-year-old possibly facing charges of adult murder. Would this make it the youngest case in Florida?
Come to the mic.
No.
Come to the mic.
I can't speak as to whether it's the youngest in Florida. It doesn't favor adult charges. In fact, our statute's set up where 14 is the discretionary cutoff. Anybody of any age can be charged by a grand jury. So if I was to take it to a grand jury and they returned an indictment, it would have to be for an adult. And obviously, the 11-year-old doesn't favor adult filing. I'm not saying it's not being considered. It's just due to her age and the other factors, her not being the person that is alleged to have pulled the trigger, that's not a likelihood at this time.
Are you able to determine, do you have a timeline of when you might be able to come up with the determination of whether you're going to?
I have 30 days to make a decision as to my next move. It's absolute in 30 days. Something will have to change because there is no extension of that detention.
Can you talk about just your process going forward? What things will you be really considering and thinking about when you decide whether or not to charge as a juvenile?
There's a lot of things to consider. There's the legal analysis of the elements of the crime. There's degrees of murder. Under Florida law in most states, a capital crime is first-degree murder, and even though children aren't allowed to face potential death, a grand jury is required to charge first-degree murder. So by information, I can charge second-degree or less. There are a lot of factors other than that as to what happens once I charge. Do I treat her as a juvenile? Do I charge her as a juvenile? Mitigation, the family situation, the past incidents involving her and her family, all of that will be factored in when I make a decision on how to handle this case. It's a little bit easier with adults. There's only one way to charge. It's just a matter of what the disposition will be. In this case, I'm dealing with an 11 and a just 15-year-old child who killed a sibling in a pretty unique family situation. So I will consider all of that in making my decision to see that justice is done for the victim and the community.
When was the last time y'all had to charge a juvenile with it as an adult?
It happens all the time. If you're talking about a homicide, that doesn't happen all the time. 14 years ago, probably. Almost a similar case other than the unique factors of it being two female siblings. There was a brother shoot another one, and the gun was in the house and shouldn't have been. The parents were both convicted felons, and I treated it as the prosecutor as a juvenile then.
Their name?
Paget.
Okay, thank y'all very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll have a packet of information for you. I would ask that you only take one per.
We are covering breaking news in Columbia County. You've been listening to the Columbia County Sheriff, Mark Hunter, and the State Attorney, Jeff Sigmeister, discussing the murder Monday night in White Springs of a 16-year-old boy. His two younger sisters are being held while the murder investigation proceeds.